What? I'm talking about the history of it.
Now, I married in 1946. I was a member at Cahaba Heights, Bow, New Merkle.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I lived in a house that my dad and I built on a property that I had bought when I was 17. I paid Ed Glass 25 cents down for 2 lots at $85 each. Brother Glass was the one of the founding members of New Merkle Church. His mother and dad gave the property for the original church. We were attending New Merkle Missionary Baptist Church. C.C. Wilcutt at the time was pastor, come from Tuscaloosa. C.C. Wilcutt's son wanted to go to the college. I know the name, but anyway.
Sanford?
Huh?
Was it Sanford? Was the name of the college Sanford?
I don't know the name. He was going to attend a Baptist church, but it was somewhere here.
Yeah.
And for some reason or other, when he graduated, he went to pastor a church in Tuscaloosa. C.C. resigned the church and went to Tuscaloosa as his assistant. Now, where in Tuscaloosa, I do not know. The pastor's committee hired a fellow by the name of Darling. And brother, he was as far out as you could get and still be here. I mean, it was just, my dad, from the time he was saved, and the Baptist people that we went to church with, I've seen young women. But the greatest prayer meetings I was ever in my life was in that church with the Southern Missionary Baptist teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never saw such a shouting and praying bunch of people. When Darling came there, I guess it was about the first or second, about maybe the second time. My dad and the rest of the people were shouting people. Darling decided to tell them that that was a bunch of hokum. That's right. And he told them if he was going to pastor that church, that would not be welcome there anymore. He split the church. They wound up with Wooten's Chapel, Philadelphia Baptist Church, and still in the old New Merkle Missionary Baptist Church. In the meantime, he sent somebody that my dad knew. Of course, back in that day, we all knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
I could sit down today and draw you a map of the old New Merkle. Every lane, wagon trail, whatever I could put it in. And he sent my dad word. He was welcome, but he'd have to leave that stammering lip at home. Well, it wasn't stammering lips. At the time, it was just rejoicing like all the rest of them did.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere just before that time, we were in, I don't know where we were. We didn't have revival meetings. We had protracted meetings. And I was in altar, and I think, if I'm not badly mistaken, I was about 8 years old. On the floor we were, and I was sitting on the second bench from the altar. And way up into the altar service, all the teenagers you could get piled up. We were just, you wouldn't have known that we weren't Church of God. We were in the Spirit with the Lord. And I saw the Baptist church clerk come around on the end with a tablet, and she was taking down names. Brother Green, I do not know, other than it was the Spirit of the Lord. I'm sitting there looking at that lady, and the Spirit says, you know, everybody that goes on that pad will be listed as a member of this church. And I quietly said to the Spirit that was talking to me, no, it won't, because I won't be a member of this church. I said, that's just not what I desire in life. I had only been to maybe 2 or 3 services, and they were under Sister Boyles before they built the church. I got up and did something that I knew my dad would whip me for if he saw me. I left where I was. My dad always set me down, and you better come back and pick me up, or you would wish you hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it all led about, but then the next thing I knew, Ed Glass, local merchant, the ones that had Sister Boyles down, his wife was I don't know whether they had a member of the church or just had a group. But anyway, she was part of it. She was a piano player. I got up and walked out. We had to walk about 1.5 miles to get to church through the heavy forest. Ed Glass invited my dad to church because my dad was looking at a 27 model Chevrolet vegetable style pickup. My dad made his living most of his life with a truck, and me. When that pastor told my dad he could not come there and praise the Lord, from that day forward, my dad was Church of God. Frank Johnson was on the radio, with a radio program. My dad didn't buy into this thing that the Church of God of Prophecy was what it was being taught. He didn't believe that. In fact of it is, he didn't believe the Holy Ghost as it was being taught. But since we had nowhere to go, we went to Tomlinson Church of God. We didn't know what the heck Thompson was. We just knew where we needed a place to go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my dad listened to his class. And we just started attending New Miracle, Church of God, A.J. Thomas, general overseer. That's where my membership was when I married. Now, let's get to where you want to go.
Mm.
I came home from the military on a quickie furlough. My parents knew nothing about my coming home from California. In fact, they hadn't seen me since I left home. I had saved enough money that I'd worked for, shining shoes, doing a little chores for the rest of the 122 people at 25, 15, whatever they wanted to give me. And I had deposited it. Most of the boys, when they get enough money, they wanted to go to town to eat. I wanted to save my money, and I ate in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
When my first sergeant asked me had I been home, I looked at him, I said, "Sergeant, I don't even know where home is anymore." He said, "Do you have enough money to get you from here to where you live?" I said, "I don't know. I ain't never been there." I said, "Like that." He said, "What do you mean you ain't never been there?" I said, if you'd been home." I said, "Sergeant, since I've been in the military, it is home. I am home. Birmingham, Alabama, is New Miracle is a mining camp. I ain't been. I don't know." My first sergeant was a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
He looked at me. He said, "What if I told you to go pack your bags and go home?" I said, "I believe in being obedient to those who have rule over me. And if that's what you told me to do," I said, "You know what I'll do? I will leave here and I will go up to the second floor where I sleep. I've got a blue bag about so big that holds everything I own. I'll go up there and I'll throw that stuff in that bag. And where we were stationed, Brother Green, the barracks come like this. About a full block below us was the Railway Express. A lot of our boys were working at the Railway Express. We could walk from where our barracks were I went just like I told him. I went back and I started throwing with my socks and little things in that bag. My next door bed buddy said, "Wyatt, where are you going?" I said, "I am going to Birmingham, Alabama, if I've got enough of pennies and dimes." And I explained to him very quickly what was going on. When I finished that, I threw that bag over my back like you would a sack of feed. I walked to that place where they told me I could buy a ticket. I had never bought a ticket. I didn't know where. Really, I didn't. I walked up to that window where it says tickets. The lady walked up to the window, says, "Where you going, soldier?" I said, "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know? Don't you know where you're from?" I said, "Yes, I know where I'm from, but I don't know where I'm going because I don't know whether I've got enough money to go or not." But it ceased to be funny. It began to get serious.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Where you want to go?" I told her. She did it, and she said, and I told her, she said, "It'll cost you this much one way." I said, "No, ma'am. I've got to have a ticket to get me there and get me back because there ain't no money on the other end." I knew my dad wasn't going to buy me a ticket. If I got anything in life, I worked for it. And it didn't bother me one bit. And she finally got it all figured out. And she told me what it would cost. And I began counting out 25-cent shoe shine money. I washed some of them dirty clothes before it was cold. I did anything I could do to get a nickel or a dime, and I had it all. When she got through counting it out, I still don't remember that much I had, but I had enough to pay her, and that's all that mattered. I asked her, I said, "How long is it going to take me to get there?" Ooh, and she told me, "Brother Green, I almost died. 3 nights and 2 days. Am I going to spend 3 nights and 2 days asking myself with no food? I can't eat." I stood there a little bit and I told her, I said, "Okay." And I counted it out and paid her, maybe. I took what little the change I had left and put it in a little bag that we had. I got on that train about dark. I went north to Nebraska. I turned right all the way across the plains to Illinois, Chicago, Illinois. When they told me where I knew where the train station was because we had been in and out. And they told me I caught on that train, and it was so dirty and filthy that you wouldn't believe it. They had took the things out of storage in a yard somewhere and put together a train called the Challenger. Brother Green, don't let nobody tell you can't live on Coca-Cola and peanuts. I finally got hungry and I said, I knew I couldn't go to the diner and eat. But when I got to the next place where they were going to have to pick up water and oil, I got off the train, I went inside, and I knew from all being in place before, where the Coke, the little Coke, and Tom's peanuts were. Bag about that long, straight up, like white peanuts. That Coke cost me a nickel. And if I'm not badly mistaken, the peanuts cost me 3 cents. That was the first meal that I had since I left Oakland. I got back on the train, I sat down, and just like I was the President of the United States, I began to eat Coke and peanuts. I poured my peanuts in that Coke, and you've never seen many people look at somebody in all your life as they were looking at me when I poured those peanuts in that Coke. I don't remember how much I had left, but I had enough left that every time I began to feel a little hungry, night or day, when they would stop, pick up the oil and stuff, I ate a pack of peanuts and a Coke. Now, that said and done, that got me home. Where we lived, we were by ourselves. And I said my dad had an appointment for the Wednesday night prayer service. I sat there at that house in the forest. My dad came in from work. He says, I'm scheduled to speak in English tonight. Would you like to go? I says, no, I don't think so, Dad. He said, well, I just thought I'd ask. Just before he left, my mother decided that she would go. My mother was babysitting my sister's baby, 18 months old. I went with my daddy to Inslee Church because we had been there before. I hauled the benches from Powhatan, where they had closed the church, to Inslee, with Brother Bailey's truck. I walked in that Inslee just to see a lady that had sold me a damaged guitar for $1. That's all I went for, to see her and to thank her, because I had 2 people in the church that had begun to teach me just chords on that old Avalon guitar with a old bottom box up. So I walked in that church and Brother, well, sometimes I think of her name, but anyway, the pastor said, we got 3 young ladies that's going to come up and sing for us. I wasn't interested in 3 young ladies. I wasn't interested in nobody singing. I just had killing time till I had to go back to Oakland. And I was minding my sister's baby. And those three girls walked up on the stage. But you know, Brother Green, it's strange how God will get your attention when He wants you to know something.
Mm-hmm.
I had learned that from my early Sunday school card teachers. When they sat through singing, they came marching off, and the whole thing was just so crazy. The front of the church was over here, and the piano sat over here, back up against the wall. And my eyes caught those three young ladies. When they went up on the stage, they faced the piano, not the audience. Now you can better believe that hit something with me, because it was still on my mind when they finished singing. And they did a military term, beep, and they come right back by me. I'm down trying to get that 18-month-old out from under a bench. I wasn't interested in him. I had never seen him before. I didn't even plan on seeing him again. No, sir. I was headed back to California. When those young ladies walked right by me, and I'm sitting just like this, something said, "Look up." And I looked up. And you know what I saw?
Mm-hmm.
I looked straight into the face of Ruby Estelle Feldman. I saw nothing but her. But Brother Green, God shuffled something out of heaven so fast till it just filled me from my head to my toes. I'd never known what love was. I didn't experience love as a kid. I just didn't know. They began to have this church service. And I thought the girls went out the back door and maybe it was stopped or something, because I didn't know where they went. But as quickly as I could get that boy out from under that seat, I went out the door. I saw Ainsley at night. I walked out that door, and I never seen as many trees, as many street lights in all my life. But one thing I couldn't forget. But something something about that young lady, it was boring a hole through me. I went to Sister Bailey, and I told Sister Bailey, I just asked her who the third girl in the middle was. My name is Leon in most places. She said, "Leon, I don't know." I stood there a minute and I said, "Sister Bailey, do you think you could find out who she is?" She had a silly little chuckle. She let out that little chuckle and she looked straight at me. She said, "Leon, what happened to you?" I looked her right straight in the face. I said, "Sister Bailey, I don't know." But I said, something inside me just kicking and churning that I have got to know who that young lady was. I had never seen her, didn't know she existed. I knew nothing about the Feltman family. At that time they lived in Ensley. And they had walked up there to church. I asked her, I said, Sister Bailey, do you think you could find out who she is and send me over? And ask her, would she be a pen pal with me? Well, she didn't want to. And I said, well, I'll go see the pastor. He knows them because he would ask him to sing. I started and she said, Leon, I'll find out. You talk about God moving in a hurry. He turned her upside down so quickly she didn't know who she was, even though she was a member of the church. I left, I gave her my name and address on the strip. I went home and I went back to Oakland. And I had been in Oakland somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks. When I received a letter, and I came there again, I worked all the time driving truck. I came in from work and went upstairs, as I always did, and sat down on my bed. But before I could get to my bed, the mail clerk said, Wyatt? I said, yes, got a letter for you. The second letter I'd had since I've been in service. What in the world and why would I walked out of the middle of the two-story barracks that we were in, and he handed me a letter. And he said, now Wyatt, I want you to look at that. He said, it's supposed to be a letter, but you know back then, Brother Green, the envelopes, they were heavy stuff. They didn't come, because it was treated very rough in the APO and other post offices. And he handed me that letter, and I run my fingers on it. It felt like it just was nothing. But me and him sat there and looked at it. And I took out a little strip of paper about this long, about that wide. And I did the next foolish thing that a man could ever do. I took that little strip of paper out and I'm standing there looking at it. Ruby Estelle Feltman. And I believe it was signed Short Creek. And that's all I had. I sat down immediately and I wrote Miss Ruby Estelle Feltman a little note. Would you be kind enough to be a pen pal with me while I'm in the service? That's all I wrote. And I sent it. When it arrived in Short Creek, That's where they lived, over at Old Short Creek. I'd never seen that place. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know. But we wrote pen pals. I was transferred to Texas. Just a casual kind of acquaintance. But that ain't what God had in mind. One day, a little letter, and she called me Leon. She says, Leon, now we can continue to write each other, but I think I need to let you know that I'm engaged to be married. Brother Green, you didn't mix romance with me and somebody else at the same time, talking about marrying him and me. I know exactly where I was in Texas. I was standing in the middle of the barracks, and I sat down on my footlocker and I wrote her a letter. No, ma'am. You will not write to me. I don't do business like that. You're engaged. Put your full attention to that young man. Don't divide it between the two of us. And I sent that letter. I finished my term in the service. I never heard of her again. But in the meantime, while I did know her, she wanted a picture. That picture sitting right yonder was made one block up from the Golden Gate Theater in San Francisco. I had it made and sent to her. A girl that was part of our group, Mother and I we were close friends, her dad and all, but family friends. I had been home with a discharge, and I had been working for 2 weeks back on my old job. And those three ladies, Ethel, Gray, and two others I do not know. Honest, I do not know. But they came to visit. I went out in the backyard because I was the only man at the house and I didn't want to hang around in the house and talk. Ethel came out there and she said, I want a picture. I said, really? Anyway, we had a conversation about that picture. And I told her, I finally looked at her. See, I hadn't written to Estelle. I was still just beginning to get started training in Texas. I didn't know. But I told her, I said, Ethel, I don't have a way to Birmingham. And back then, we either had to ride a bus or walk. I didn't have a car. My dad sold my car when I was drafted.
Mm-hmm.
He spent the money.
Oh, goodness.
That's another story.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I told Ethel, I said, Ethel, and I looked at her, I said, Ethel, do you know who that girl is? Yeah, we go to church with each other every once in a while. I said, do you visit with them? She said, it all depends. Says, I have been in their home. Because she was with somebody that somebody was doing the visiting. And they were on a visiting trip. I looked at her and I said, Ethel, I called her Ethel because they lived in Bayview Camp. My gang went to Bayview Camp quite often on Friday nights and Saturday nights to visit a family. And it's just part of the family in a sense. When she left, they started out our driveway, and this driver stopped, and Ethel got out. She walked right to the back of that car, and she says, hey, would you do me a favor? I said, Ethel, I would do you a favor if it's at all possible. Sure I will. She said, would you write that little girl a note and tell her that she can give me that? See, I told whoever it was, they were talking about when I give up, we quit writing. And I got home and all that stuff. But do you know something, Brother Green? I don't know how long it had been that from the time I was in San Francisco till I went out of Texas until I was home. And I had already been 2 weeks because I got my first paycheck. And I'm standing there looking at Ethel, and she's asking me for a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I was as being as polite as I knew how to tell her no. So he got around to that picture.
Mm-hmm.
That picture.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like I told you. That was made 2 blocks above the Golden Gate Theater on Market Street in San Francisco, California.
You're very handsome.
So I told Ethel, I said, if you go back over there and see that young lady, she's getting married to somebody else, surely she don't want to hang on to an old picture that I sent her from service. She said, do you mind if I said, no ma'am, I don't mind. Ethel left and went home, I went back to work. I don't know how long it was left between there and there. Till I came in from work. I was having to ride with somebody else to Birmingham and in Woodlawn.
Mm-hmm.
I was working at Continental Tin Company. We were building machines to build transmissions and full hole machines. And it was a lovely job. I came in from work, my mother said, guess what? I said, I don't have nothing to guess about. What is it? She said, looks like there might be a little letter on the kitchen table when you sit down to eat. Because Mama always had supper ready when Dad and I come in by myself that day. My dad was working at the same place, but we had several ways to get there. So I walked into the kitchen and I picked up that letter. And I looked at it. I said, boy, they don't want to know too much. I sat down at the table. I opened that thing. And there's another one of them little strips. I said, who in the world and what in the world? Well, back, boy, that 1947, you got a letter through the mail, you is somebody. Man, that's what, that wasn't like it is today.
Mm-hmm.
When I took it out, that was all I had, that little strip. And I thought, this don't make sense. That looks like the same strip that I got in Oakland. I sat down and I took that little note out, and guess what I had? A little strip of paper. It's about that long, maybe about that wide. And I began to read. Welcome back home. I thought I would let you know, as best I knew how, that I am not engaged to be married anymore. But the real part of this note is to say to you that you be welcome to see me in Short Creek if you would like to. You ever seen a big like to?
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you could mail a letter for 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
I put it right down on another little strip of paper. Yes, ma'am, I would like to. You just advise me when. That wound up with what I have today.
Mm-hmm.
God, that night when I walked into that Easley church, I wasn't looking for a wife. I hadn't even thought about a wife. But there's one thing I had made up my mind. That I didn't like divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I had told the Lord in Ocala, Florida, on basic training, I sat down in my training truck with 3 or 4 of us, and it was so dark you couldn't put your finger on your nose. We were training to drive trucks in the dark. I remember as I sat with my back against the cab of the truck, we had to rotate drivers. And as dark as it was, Brother Green, I saw this thing look like a rope coming around the top of that truck. It was so dark you wouldn't believe what was going on. And I'm sitting back there with this, what I had already felt it was sitting beside me, and I was afraid to move. I sit there and I watched that rope unfold across the top of that truck and come down real slow. It liked about that much being down. I found myself being pushed in the dark, and I crawled on that truck, and I'm looking up. Never had such an experience, and I sat there and looked at that rope. Or what it was, I don't know what it was. It just looked like a piece of rope coming down like that. And I quietly made the Lord a promise. Never had thought of making the Lord a promise or nothing. I was looking up, and the Holy Ghost began to talk, not in a language that you would recognize as being that, but just what you hear. I said, Lord, you don't know me too much, but if you have a work when I get out of this man's army that you would like for me to do for you, I would have one request to make of you. Would you please, sir, give me a wife that'll be with me at the end of the road? Brother Green, you're seeing prophecy, and you'll be interviewing her request. This old boy made about 2 miles above Ocala, Florida, where Disney World is today, in a pine tree turpentine forest, on his knees about something I didn't know anything about. You want to know how she walked into that church? Somewhere in Inslee during all the time. I told this so many times, I said even God knew when I left Texas what was about to happen in my life. And I believe it with every ounce of anything I have, they can believe. Just as sure as the day that I walked up to that work cabinet where I was in Oakland, and the sergeant walked up to me and said, how long has it been since you've been home? That's when God dropped his mark. I had never seen Estelle Feltman. I didn't even know there was a Feltman family. I had never been to Birmingport. I didn't know anything about that part of the country. I had never been there. But there I stood, looking at a lady that God had brought and marched down beside me. And when I asked Sister Bailey what helped me find her, Sister Bailey just simply asked a question. Leon, what happened to you? As honest as I could understand that, Sister Bailey, I don't know. But there's one thing that I do know. I have got to know that young lady.